system. You're getting access to nightmare dungeons. You're going to start to see unique items begin to drop in different parts of the game. And then you're going to start to see sacred and ancestral items also begin to appear in World Tiers 3, and then particularly in 4.
Ok, estamos aquí.
And also, in addition to those things, the world, of course, is becoming more dangerous as the players
Diablo
step into Nightmare and Torment tiers, World Tiers 3 and 4 respectively. Monsters can do more damage.
Buenas, gente, directo de Diablo 4.
There's a number of changes. Joe,
Los desarrolladores están hablando. He empezado un poquitito tarde, un minutito tarde.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I love about the capstone dungeons
Y nos están hablando básicamente
for the world tiers
de los calabozos
is that you've
que
got this,
se utilizan para cambiar de
the
dificultad.
general gameplay loop of getting more powerful, optimizing your build, getting more gear, and then you have something that you're testing yourself against. And then when you defeat that, you move into this entirely new world tier with all of the additional like systems and mechanics and features that unlock. So you
que básicamente
really
cuando cambias de dificultad, cuando completas este calabozo para pasar de dificultad, desbloqueas un montón de cosas para, claro, mejorar tu equipo.
Champion creatures, which are just more powerful minions that can show up in your elites and be affected in certain ways.
That's right. Yeah, the monsters have certain cooldowns between their attacks. They have logic for how they do targeting. They have projectiles. Some projectiles have seeking, so they can home to some extent. And they have some logic about how they group up and how they decide which people to target. And so a lot of those different parameters we adjust as you go up the world tiers to make the monsters more threatening. Because of course the players are getting more familiar with the game, they're getting more skilled, and they're also getting access to more tools in terms of
Al parecer, la dificultad de los monstruos en general va cambiando, evidentemente, con cada World Tier. Al parecer, cambian ciertas mecánicas.
It's easy for us to imagine that we could just make the game more difficult by increasing the damage the creatures deal or increasing the amount of hit points they have as you're going through these encounters. But we wanted to make sure that the world felt more dangerous as you progress into these higher world tiers.
Vale, se quieren asegurar que a medida que avanzas en dificultad, el mundo sea cada vez más difícil, por así decirlo. Se sienta más peligroso.
Sense anything like kind of going from world tiers like 1 and 2 into like world tiers 3 or 4?
Oh, I definitely felt it. You stated in the difficulty descriptions, I guess I just glossed over it and I just expected more damage, more health. Yeah, I know how difficulty works.
Vale.
But I was starting to feel, the world just seems more hostile, more aggressive. And that's when I realized, there's a lot more at play in the increased difficulty here than just
confirman aquí que
bigger numbers.
Mayor dificultad no solamente son más números, sino que hay más adiciones, además de más números de daño, por ejemplo.
To have a lot of these conversations and with the audience, they can kind of convey some of the more interesting depth and complexities associated with some of the systems. So in World Tiers, you gain access to two new sets of itemization tiers. In World Tier 3, you gain access to sacred items.
Vale, tenemos nuevos objetos en el Tier 3, en dificultad 3.
For players as they're going through those spaces. Now, with the players leveling up from 1 to 50, the items that you're getting from monsters that you're killing are going to be, the power is going to be based on their strength and level. So if you are you're playing in the beta, you're killing level 35 monsters for whatever reason, and you're going to be getting slightly more powerful gear as a result of that because the monsters are more challenging and they're dropping better gear for you. But once you reach level 50, and that basically that flow means that as you're leveling up and you're fighting more challenging things, you're going to continue to like slowly upgrade all of your gear over time. You'll find a ring here, and a helmet there, a pair of gloves. That's great. That's how we want you to kind of like get exposed to itemization systems as you're progressing through initially in the game. But once you get into World Tier 3, things change a little bit.
Vale, dice que cambia un poco las cosas en dificultad 3.
The higher the level of the creature that you're fighting, the more likely the chances that items dropped from that creature will be sacred in nature.
Vale, mientras más poderosa es la criatura, mejor loot tiene probabilidad de otorgarte.
They can have. So you could get into World Tier 3, you could kill a pack of elites in your first dungeon.
Vale, puedes matar
level 50. And you can get an item out of that group. Maybe it's a rare item that drops out from that group that is powerful enough to serve a level 70 character.
Un objeto, por ejemplo, raro.
The sacred item tier basically is going to have gear in it that goes from level 50 all the way up to level 70 in terms of like the power swing there. Once you get a little bit higher, it's a little more likely to get slightly higher in the range, but it's very likely you can get those really great drops really early, which we think is super exciting because we want you to be trying to like always be looking for like just the right ring, and it could show up like your best in slot ring for that for a sacred tier might show up at level 51. And that might be the one that you want to hold on to for the entirety of that tier.
And you're talking about,
dicen que
when you're talking about these sacred items, the level requirement for this ring, for example, is not 70, right?
No. So the level, that's a great point, Joe. So the level requirement for this is actually to be set at the level at which you actually loot the item. So once again, you have trading in the game. If you are level 50 and you get a really, really great range drop, that's going to be good for not quite your build, but like maybe you're playing a bleed barbarian.
Nos dicen que los objetos que encuentras evidentemente son de tu nivel y tienen claro el requerimiento de tu nivel. Lo que decían antes, aquí están hablando un poquito de que hay comercio y por lo tanto hay un tema de que si quieres comerciar evidentemente el objeto tiene tu requerimiento de tu nivel, entonces hay un pequeño juego, digamos, ahí. Vale, aquí tenemos ejemplos de legendarios. Tenemos un anillo, una masa y un amuleto. Vale, los legendarios están fijados o ligados a un poder legendario y están, claro, diseñados para aparecer random. Puede aparecer en guantes, o puede aparecer en un anillo, puede aparecer en cualquier parte del equipo, básicamente. Y claro, está la mecánica de que puedes extraer el poder de un objeto y ponerlo en otro completamente diferente. Y claro, ayuda a crear tu build, ayuda pues, a personalizar tu personaje. Preguntan si pueden decir el Lego, porque hablan como de Lego, de construir, claro, tu personaje. Y claro, Lego es una marca una marca con mucho copyright.
That's part of the fantasy we think of legendary items. Did you actually get a chance, when you're going through 1 of 50, there's only a certain number of these that are actually available. But when you get into World Tiers 3 and 4, more legendary powers are available. Did you get a chance to see any like new legendary powers as you were playing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely got to see a variety of legendary powers. I got a certain number of drops. Drop rates didn't feel out of control, but you guys gave me some pre-made characters as well that were decked out with builds, and I saw lots of cool synergistic powers that came together to really make a build flow well. And I think my favorite power was probably on actually a unique item, and it was for the
estos son objetos únicos
that made your werewolf form your true form. So I know a lot of people have been saying, hey, can I just be a werewolf all the time?
Yep.
Yes.
No, estos son más legendarios.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, that's the next step, right? So unique items. So unique items only begin to appear when players enter the Nightmare tier. So once you're in World Tier 3, there's a low chance that some of the game's unique items will
No, ahora sí. Estos son ancestrales únicos.
They're very, very rare.
Vale, nos dicen que son muy raros.
Some of them are really important for build making.
Algunos son muy importantes, nos dicen para algunas builds.
Opportunities for players to go and pursue. These are things that are designed to be really exciting, like what you suggest there when you have that experience trying to gather the werewolf, the ability to stay in werewolf form effectively forever with that druid unique. Really cool.
Nos dice, por ejemplo, que hay un único que te permite con el druida ser hombre lobo todo el tiempo, que hombre lobo tenía sus beneficios. Entonces, claro, es un ítem que para ciertas builds querías encontrar.
Lots of opportunities for us to basically kind of pay homage to items that came in previous versions of Diablo, previous entries in the series. You'll see a number of different items make returns. Items like
claro, hablan de que algunos objetos clásicos del mundo de Diablo van a volver. Por ejemplo, en la beta. Yo que jugué la beta encontré la Burisa Nioh Canyon. Es una ballesta que viene desde Diablo 2. Está en Diablo 3 también. Una ballesta que me gusta mucho, la verdad.
Font changes and so forth that based off the beta learnings that we actually ended up posting last week.
Claro, están hablando de que hicieron publicaron un artículo hablando de los cambios que iban a hacer con respecto al feedback de la beta que no lo hemos mencionado en este canal. Tenemos que hablar de eso.
People pointed out that the font, while highly readable, and we spent a lot of time thinking about, how the game is going to display on all kinds of different screens, different aspect ratios, TVs, right? And so we want the font to be highly readable in all of those situations.
¿Se escucha bien? ¿Se escucha todo bien?
Much like Diablo as it could have, and so we
no lo he preguntado, la poca gente que está aquí viendo, ¿se escucha bien?
But had more of a Diablo thing, and it's just a great example of players pointing something out and us being able to react to it.
Vale.
What's the next thing we want to talk about, Riker? What do you think?
Okay, siguiente punto dicen.
We have all these legendary items. One semi-deterministic way to farm for them, Helltide. It's an activity where
legendarios que puedes farmear muy fácilmente y otros que son un poco más random.
Target farm specific item slots to hunt for specific unique items. and it's going to be one of the main endgame activities that we'll be partaking in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Vale,
as I
gracias
mentioned
Luz
before, once the
por el
player gains
comentario.
access to Nightmare Torment here, they are going to Nightmare
escucha
tier,
bien,
they're going to start seeing some of these new activities. One of them, which is Helltide. Helltide is basically going to be the situation where you're running in through the world of Sanctuary. The sky turns red.
Vale, están hablando de un evento random que aparece en el mundo,
Everything is more challenging.
que es esto donde hay como unas zonas de influencia en las que Lilith tiene mucha más influencia, el poder demoníaco tiene más influencia. Y claro, hay eventos con monstruos mucho más poderosos y tienes oportunidades de conseguir mucho más loot. Y claro, existe la oportunidad de hacer eventos junto a más personas que te puedes encontrar, claro, por el mundo random.
So every one of the caches in the Helltide zone is actually tied to an item slot. And they all have different costs. So you look kind of like you'll be gathering cinders by playing within this space, trying to locate one of the caches that have the item type that you're looking for, whether like maybe you're looking for
entonces hay objetos especiales dentro de estas zonas random.
Maybe you're looking for a Shaco. So you're looking actually to go find a helmet cache and want to keep trying to go after the helmet cache.
Y están en ciertos cofres especiales que te dan, claro, esos objetos interesantes.
Some of that opportunity to give you that opportunity to target farm a little bit. But there's actually a little bit of fun there too. So one of the things that's like one of my personal favorite parts of the Helltide system is the idea that the players there's like an extra set of stakes, right? When the player's running around with these cinders, they have the chance if they die, they're going to lose about half of their cinders every time they fall. And they don't drop on the ground; they're gone. So you have to be very careful about like when you're looking to overextend as part of the combat experience in order to like farm more cinders, get to the cache that you're looking for. Whatever that is,
vale, si mueres en estos eventos, pierdes parte, digamos, de los puntos que has recolectado durante el evento.
And there's a time limit on Helltide too, right?
That's right.
Y además tienen un tiempo límite.
The Force of Hell only arrive for about an hour during when they are actually active. And different areas of Sanctuary are picked for Helltide Zone each time it rotates and moves around. So
vale, rota de vez en cuando el lugar, evidentemente, que tiene este evento especial y durante cierta hora tienes que gastar los puntos que has conseguido, si no, claro, los vas a perder. Y claro, los gastas abriendo estos cofres especiales que tienen los objetos concretos.
So I start by, I'm scouting out the different chests or caches to see, which is the one that has the slot that I'm looking for.
Nos dice que, claro, él estaba viendo cuál era el cofre, que tenía cierto objeto.
About this rate per minute, I have this many minutes left. I think I could afford the most expensive, the weapon slot.
Y aquí Riker haciendo cálculos para ver si podía conseguir el objeto que quería. Y murió. Y tuvo que empezar a recalcular y murió otra vez, dice. Entonces ahí de nuevo, tomando el tiempo para ver cuánto puedo hacer y calculando los tiempos para ver si puede conseguir el objeto que quiere.
Obviously, it does take a little wind out of your sails if you just happen to get jumped at the wrong time. Again, another great opportunity
to hablan de que tienes que verlo bien, porque sí, claro, si mueres, puedes perder parte de las recompensas.
So these chests or caches, boxes with loot, awesome loot inside, right? Each time a Helltide appears, they're in different locations, right? So you have to go and find them, as Riker was saying. But for the duration of that Helltide, they're in fixed places. So, when you go into the Helltide area, it's useful to scout out and see where the caches are for the item slots that you're interested in.
Claro, hablan de que es bueno, por ejemplo, ser consciente de dónde están los cofres y para organizar un poco mejor dónde ganas tus puntitos, dónde farmeas para, claro, conseguir el objeto que quieres.
Caches on the screen earlier, in some of our video that we captured for it. Now we did capture that with the UI off, so you can't see the icon above it, but there is an icon that says, in here there are boots.
That's correct.
So you will know before you open that cache what's in it.
Vale, algo que no se ve en los videos que mostraron es que la interfaz te dice literalmente qué objetos están en esos cofres, pero no se podía ver porque tenían la interfaz apagada, claro, por el tema del tercer video.
We can't really have such a wonderful experience as Helltide without our baby boy, the Butcher, showing up occasionally and causing serious mayhem and mischief. In the overworld of Sanctuary.
De este mini boss
lots of really fun things
que aparecía random, el carnicero.
And it's also an opportunity to farm a special crafting material, right?
That's correct. There are craft materials like Fiend Rose and things that really are coming directly from Helltide encounters and those experiences. So you are looking to also get some of the materials you need for
materiales
like, really
exclusivos de estos
like weapon and item
eventos
upgrades
de los
from
que
going
hemos
through
estado hablando últimamente.
places.
So Helltide is what we're doing to farm crafting materials in order to target farm-specific drops.
Tiene varias funciones. Básicamente puedes farmear materiales, puedes farmear objetos.
Talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So, yeah, Joe, do you have anything you want to talk about for Nightmare Dungeons first?
Y ahora van a hablar de los dungeons potenciados por la dificultad, básicamente. Con las llaves. Estas son las llaves, creo. Correcto. Básicamente, estas llaves sirven para potenciar un calabozo concreto y, claro, obtener más recompensas de este calabozo a cambio de que de que los monstruos tengan cambios. Por ejemplo, aquí vemos los cambios. Y claro, ahí de fondo nos dicen que los calabozos pueden ser transformados dependiendo de la llave que utilizas.
Players haven't had a chance to play these in our betas yet, but as they get into the end game content, start going through World Tiers 3 and 4, you'll begin to see you'll gain access to some of your first sigils, which are primarily initially earned by completing Whispers of the Dead, one of our other overworld content features that players will be able to engage with. Now, sigils are really interesting in that they are tied to a level when you find them. It's going to affect
que no están diciendo algo demasiado relevante. Vamos a dejar el link del directo en la descripción.
These are going to modify the way that level rolls out. But Nightmare Sigils, when they are activated, after you collect one, is going to basically open up a portal near an existing side dungeon. And in the pre-release version of Diablo 4 and additional seasons, we basically select a subset of all of the side dungeons of the game that can become Nightmare Dungeons for that period. So players become more familiar with a set number of these because they know that they can be populated with these Nightmare Dungeon experiences. So you might already know, whether it's Annex Acclaim or whatever it is, what the layout of a given dungeon might look like normally. But Nightmare Sigil is going to change that by introducing these new afflictions and then also these greater afflictions. We showed earlier in the video like this. Right now, actually, we're looking at this hell portal, nightmare portal that can open up and basically spawn in all these monsters from other like monster families. It might not be native to that dungeon, which is pretty cool. In that we like the idea that players are going to have to kind of deal with these new, different threats than what they're typically used to as part of that encounter. And there's a number of these other like greater afflictions, like we showed the Stormbane's Wrath, that disc thing.
En el chat
around you, and occasionally it just pulses out this really big
tienen el link al directo por si
quieren verlo. You have to be
verlo.
mindful of where it is. You should make sure you avoid it as part of the combat experience. Definitely adds a new wrinkle to gameplay as you're going through. And we add more of these afflictions as the player continues to level up and they get to go deeper and deeper into the Nightmare Sigil system, unlocking higher level sigils and dealing with more and more dangerous threats over the course of time. And this is a really great place. Not only just to earn experience and really push your build and make sure that you're strong enough to tackle these sorts of challenges, but you'll also be able to. These are really great places to farm for like sacred and ancestral items in particular, and these are the places that you're going to be upgrading your Paragon glyphs. We'll be talking more about the Paragon system right now. So, in that, this is an opportunity to show
Para que no lo sepa, están hablando
hey, look, it's actually up right now. What time
de los glifos de Paragon. Los glifos de Paragon son unos objetos que se ponen en tu árbol Paragon, en tu árbol de habilidades pasivas. Y al parecer es en estos lugares dentro de los dungeons, al parecer.
These socketables will go into your Paragon board and end up being some of the single most powerful modifiers you can apply to your character, above legendary powers, and even in some cases, even above some unique powers. So it's really in your benefit, based on your build, to be choosing, looking for a set number of these and upgrade them to exactly what you need them to do.
Vale. Nos dicen que los glifos son algunos de los potenciadores más fuertes que hay para tus personajes, entonces son bastante importantes.
What I noticed is that if you get some afflictions that you don't particularly care about, we have the ability to salvage some in order to craft sigils of our own, right? I think it's a 4-to-1 ratio, is that right?
Yeah, just about. So you'll be able to get a lot of these different sigils by going through Nightmare Dungeons, completing Whispers, and through other content. If you're finding sigils that you don't really want or don't really want to run, maybe it's
una llave que no quieres,
to do additional lightning damage, but you don't have a lot of lightning resist on your build. Maybe you want to go ahead and salvage that back at the Occultist. Take that down to sigil dust and use that to basically make new
y conseguir un polvo especial.
This is ways for players to kind of push themselves
con el cual puedes utilizarlo al parecer para crear otras llaves. Interesante.
And it's another way to kind of reutilize some of the sigils you might not be as interested in running from time to time.
Yeah, one thing I liked about the afflictions was it was making me make choices during the gameplay. Like two that I can speak to, the Nightmare Gates that we were just showcasing. let's say I'm in the middle of fighting an elite and I'm almost taking him down. I see that nightmare portal opening and I'm like, okay, should I take care of that before it starts spawning more monsters, or do I finish this fight first? I'm forced to make a decision, and I got to live with the consequences if I think, maybe I should take him down, and then the fight becomes more challenging, and nope, I should have taken care of that gate first.
Básicamente Riker hablándonos de su experiencia de uno de los afijos de los calabozos. Es que aparece un portal dentro que empieza a spawnear monstruos y Riker tenía que decidir si luchar contra los monstruos que estaban apareciendo o terminar la pelea que ya estaba peleando, que vendría a ser lo mejor.
It's like, okay, I thought I had time to get away. Then I got crowd controlled, and then boom, one shot. So I like how it changes the dungeon experience depending on which of these afflictions.
Y claro, debido a los monstruos que aparecen, cambian un poco la mecánica del propio dungeon.
Where you gotta be careful. You can't choose to just throw yourselves at these things, and if you're making mistakes, you have to really evaluate carefully how you're progressing.
Sure.
Vale.
So yeah, you got a chance to play through some of those. So yeah, Nightmare Dungeon,
Riker,
very
por
exciting.
cierto, probó una versión del juego que nadie más ha probado.
Actually, so this is a content type
que no es
that you can
pública,
actually fight up to creatures up to
Riker es el
level
del sombrero.
150. Actually, is part of the experience based on how far you're able to push yourself as time goes on. So really excited about how far players can go with that.
All right, now you're talking about glyphs and the Paragon system, so let's talk more about those Paragon boards.
Oh, let's do it.
Okay, si viene los
Paragon boards. So
el Paragon.
We talked a bit about Paragon.
Los árboles de habilidades.
We've shown picture the board just like this, and we've shown you things like, hey, look, here's normal node. This is a way to earn
Es
like
la mesa
5
Paragon,
willpower.
por así decirlo.
But
O el
that's not
tablero
all
Paragon.
this board is about. There's a lot of other complexity and things to deal with in here. So there are basically 4 types of nodes to kind of quickly reprise some of this information.
Básicamente
First, of course, normal nodes. Then we have what you show here is magic nodes. These are different affixes that you can collect over the course of time. Usually they're like a little bit more difficult to find a direct version of on items. So something like this, for example, crackling energy damage. So that's a sorceress, so like a lightning spec sorceress ability, or passive effectively, where she'll occasionally be crackling out damage to nearby targets.
Wait.
You can now boost that by finding this particular magic node, which kind of might eventually unlock other builds for you to kind of go and chase after.
Wait.
But then there are rare nodes, which is on the next slide. And here, okay, so there's some information here. Rare nodes have a pretty powerful effect right off the bat. But then on top of that, there's this bonus effect down below that you can sort of see. Where on this one, it is, another 60% damage to it if you reach a certain amount of dexterity for your character.
Que claro, esto tiene una...
The point here is like rare nodes on their own, which there's about 10 or more per board. Rare nodes are already pretty powerful generic.
Cuando lo
But
alcanzas
then
te da
on
un
top
bonus.
of that, if you were able to hit these thresholds for the stat requirements for these rare nodes,
Que en este
that
caso
is
es
going
más
to make them
daño a
very,
élites, por eso
very
está en
potent
verde.
for you indeed. And when you're looking at the board, these are some of the most critical things you'd be thinking about when you're plotting your path through each board.
32% más de daño a élites.
And then when you'll be able to rotate them, you'll have to choose how you want to progress through rare nodes, whether you want to engage with the legendary nodes or not. This is a really important thing.
Yeah.
One other bit about this, just because it's easy for me to forget about, is that when you're going from Paragon board to Paragon board, like in the first board, this might be the cost. But then when you're looking at the second board that you're progressing through, those requirements are actually going to go up. So it's not in your interest to go run from board to board, just unlock as many of these as you can directly through that way. You need to spend a little bit of time into the board and pick the ones that you really want, because the next board that you unlock to get more rare nodes of different
Nos
types.
dicen que claro, tienes que pensar un poquito sobre cómo vas organizando todo esto.
The thing I think is really interesting
Puedo
about
intentar
these is
traducir
when
Palaxbox, pero no soy extremadamente bueno, no puedo traducir tan rápido. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Están hablando del Paragon, como tienes que pensar un poquito, no puedes simplemente rushear por los más poderosos, porque tienes que fijarte bien en tomar lo que quieres.
Okay, well, I'm pretty close to the dexterity required here through my gear. Are there some dexterity nodes that I could hit?
Y claro, nos dicen que además, debido al bono, pues tienes que fijarte también los que vas tomando, porque
the normal nodes actually become sort of a path that you're trying to take to turn on these bonuses.
Absolutely.
Entonces, claro, los normales nos dicen que son literalmente los caminos que
So then we have our legendary nodes. So every one of the
para llegar a
boards,
los
each of the
potentes.
classes has a legendary node.
Están hablando de los nodos legendarios.
These are really, really powerful.
Son muy poderosos.
Powers like you'd expect. They are a legendary power, effectively unique to the Paragon board system for that class and for whatever that particular board is trying to convey as its overall build type. So these are really, really powerful things to go and collect. They're actually not the most powerful thing. This is just an additional extra powerful affix you can kind of apply to your character, but you kind of do this in concert with other things that you're looking for, like I mentioned,
claro,
the rare
tienes que saberlos
and I
combinar,
also
tienes
talked
que
before
combinarlos.
about glyphs, and we're going to talk about that next.
con los
So when you
glifos.
basically,
Ojalá,
as you're going
o
through the
tienes
board, there are going to be
que
these
verlo bien
sockets that you
con
can
el tema de
unlock.
los glifos.
And the sockets are going to be sitting adjacent to a number of other regular nodes. Now, the way that glyphs work is that you're going to put them into one of these sockets, and they are going to be affecting nearby nodes and also fueled by
básicamente
other
los
nearby
equipas
nodes.
y lo que
So if you
hace
hit
es
certain
afectar
thresholds inside some of the glyphs,
a
you're also
los
going to unlock powerful monsters. You're going to
puntitos que tienes alrededor.
also affect nearby nodes at the same time. And as I mentioned before,
Por lo tanto,
glyphs can
claro,
be leveled up
ganas.
pretty high. They continue to grow the radius of the affected nodes as you
Oh, y
level up
puedes
these
hacer
certain
crecer
tiers.
el
So
radio,
they can,
además.
affect larger and larger areas. And the boards are not symmetrical in nature as you're progressing through.
Y claro, dicen que
Because the player can rotate their board
el
and
board,
choose which
la
gate they
tabla
actually
no
want
es
to,
simétrica, por lo
enter
tanto,
from. You have to like kind of choose
claro,
from board
tienes
to
que pensarlo un
board
poquito.
where are the sockets on this board.
Claro,
Are they
¿dónde
near
te
the stats I
conviene?
really want for this glyph? Because,
¿Dónde te
this
conviene
glyph is
poner el
fueled
glifo?
by,
Porque claro, necesitas
dexterity
ver-
nodes within range of the glyph effect. It's
claro,
gonna do
tu objetivo es
additional
obtener
critical
lo,
strike damage,
lo,
whatever
lo
it's
más
going to do
posible
for
del
this result.
glifo.
That's a really, really important choice to make, and because all of the
Sí,
boards
claro,
have
y dice
different
que es una,
configurations, different socket
de verdad una
locations, and
decisión muy
different things near
importante.
those sockets, you have a lot of interesting decisions to make about like where you actually want to invest your time.
Hay
How does it
mucha
matter? Like,
decisión,
how does it
claro.
feel to do this relative to the rare nodes you might need on that board from a different board instead? Like fun decisions for players to make as they're going through.
Diablo 4 no es igual que Diablo Immortal. En Diablo 4 tienes que pagar. Es como Diablo 3. Imagina Diablo 4 como Diablo 3.
To feel like they've got very different paths to the Paragon board, different decisions to make, even if all of their skill choices are identical.
Yeah, it's something that, we've talked about a lot in Diablo 4. It's the idea that even if you have, let's say Incinerate is a powerful sorcerer build for,
Hablan que, por ejemplo, si tienes un
you're
mago muy
not going to
poderoso,
necessarily be the same,
no necesariamente va a
exactly the
ser
same,
pues la misma
loadout
build
as
que
another Incinerate
otro mago,
That's
por
right.
ejemplo.
One thing I found really cool about the Paragon system
Bueno,
that
esa
I didn't
es
realize
la
at
idea.
first is that every Paragon board is almost like a Paragon class, like a specialization class.
Sí,
where
nos dice que
it's all
cada
built
tablero
around a certain
Paragon es
theme,
casi como
fantasy,
una
playstyle,
clase por sí sola.
and it all revolves
Lo
around
dijeron un
that
poquito
central
antes,
or
cada tablero
off-central
tiene su
legendary
especialización, por
node,
así decirlo,
and then
su propio,
the rares kind of support that same theme,
su
and
propia
it extends to
habilidad
the
o su
blues.
propia
So like on
temática,
a
más o menos.
Necromancer, like, oh, this board is like
Entonces,
the pure
claro,
summoner,
nos dice Riker que a veces,
fantasy,
por
and
ejemplo,
this
con
one is the
el
blood
negromante que
mage,
quiero necesito
and
este
looking at
tablero.
it that way really
Claro, para
made,
avanzar a través de él
very
y
cool for me to
conseguir,
be able to explore,
evidentemente,
okay, I can
lo que quieras
merge
conseguir.
these two together.
Y
I'm
después
gonna
nos
go
dice,
like
bueno,
bone
voy a intentar
and
juntar este
blood
con este otro,
and
que
just
claro, porque
further,
quiero este otro también y
yeah,
todo el cuento.
explore and dive into
Porque
that,
para quien no
that
lo sepa, los
specialization.
tableros Paragon
Yeah.
se pueden conectar e
Yeah,
incluso
there's,
rotar. Tú
220
los conectas
Paragon
como
points that
quieres.
players will have
Y
by
claro,
the
vas
time they
avanzando a
level
través
up
de
their
los,
character at level 100.
árboles
You want
Paragon.
those choices to feel like they've got meaning individually. Players can respect them for those choices if they want for gold
Dicen
cost.
que se
We want to be
puede
able to play with this
reiniciar
system and be
por
able to
un
kind of
costo.
experiment with different ideas as they go. But importantly, we want them to feel like that the choices they made for the 220 matter a great deal. Their overall
Quieren
performance.
el costo es porque
Yeah.
quieren hacer
Yeah, super fun.
que la decisión
I think.
que
Yeah,
toman
right.
sea relevante,
Can we talk
por
about
así
that?
decirlo. Hay que
Well, I
decir,
guess,
hay
at
mucha
this point we can
crítica
talk
de esto
about
y
some
yo
of the
me
beta
sumo a la
learnings.
crítica.
We had a beta,
Es
the
molesto tener un
community gave a
costo
lot of
adicional.
feedback,
Es muy molesto
and
tener un costo
you folks
adicional.
took in that feedback, digested it, and transformed it into actionable change in the game. You want to
Y claro, hablan aquí de que el feedback,
Yeah, I keep saying we're going to talk about that. Now is the time.
van a hablar del
So,
feedback, ¿ok?
let's start out with
Esto es
looking at some of the
interesante.
class changes that we did.
Algunos de los cambios
So there's a lot of
debido
text on the
al
screen.
feedback.
You've had an opportunity,
Clases,
if you've been
general,
following along, to check
efectos
out
como el
our
stun
blog
y
that
el
documents
congelar
a lot of the
ahora pueden
changes,
ser aplicados a monstruos
that,
élite
we
dos
were
veces
able to make
mientras
as a result
eh,
of,
no, y
feedback
pueden
from
ser
players
aplicados dos
in,
veces y luego se
the
vuelven
two beta
imparables.
weekends.
Destacar
and
esto
also, from,
que está aquí
data that we
es
get.
parte
You
de
know,
un artículo.
we
Esto
get a
ya
lot
se ha
of data,
publicado. Es parte de un artículo o una
how many
noticia
times
dentro
someone
del
dies
del Blizzard News.
our
Voy a ver
necromancers
si
dying a lot
encuentro
in this
ahora rápido el
dungeon,
link y lo
or
dejo en el
Sith boss
chat.
killing barbarians a lot of times, and we can use that alongside player data to identify areas where there
encuentro
might be a
rápido.
class deficiency, or areas where maybe something is exceptionally strong compared to other things that are balanced to be the same power. And so, in general, one of the things that we
Aquí está.
looked at from those two beta weekends is feedback that the Barbarian and the Druid, the melee classes, felt
Están hablando
weaker
básicamente
than
del feedback.
the Necromancer, Rogue, and Sorcerer.
Link al chat por si alguien
And
quiere ir
there
a
are a
verlo.
lot of aspects to
Está en
that.
inglés
So
en el link
there's
que les
some
dejé
nuance
ahí
in here, right?
en el
Like,
chat.
For the Barbarian, we
Y
felt,
básicamente nos dicen el
we
bárbaro
identified that
se
the Barbarian,
identificó
at low levels in
que
particular,
en niveles bajos en particular
needed more damage reduction sort of built
tiene
in.
muy poca
And so we
reducción
added
de
this
daño al
passive
parecer.
damage reduction. So you're just you're just going to take 10% less damage.
Por lo tanto,
just flat, no matter what
le ponen un
choices you're
10%
making,
pasivo, pero luego también, y aquí lo dice, más adelante, claro, no vas a tener tanta reducción, entonces te lo dan de antes, te lo dan de forma pasiva, y luego puedes aumentarlo, pero no tanto como antes.
You could really benefit from some buffs. In fact, I think,
básicamente están hablando aquí de los cambios. Podemos un momentito hablar nosotros por separado. Vamos a bajar el volumen y vamos a ir leyendo. O aquí empieza a hablar Riker. Aquí están hablando del rojo todavía. No, del druida.
Casting, storm skills, and the playstyle was so tight, it flowed so well. It just all gelled together once you got the full kit, the full build together. And I went into this week with a certain class favoritism. Where I had Rogue, I had Necromancer, Sorceress, Barbarian, and then Druid in dead last. I'm really confused now. I think Druid might be my favorite now.
Vale, básicamente Riker probó al Druida con una build más establecida, con una build con muchas más sinergias, y ahora, al parecer, el Druida podría ser una de las favoritas de Riker.
And monsters, in particular, their attacks that deal damage in an area where it feels like there wasn't a way for the melee class to deal damage effectively while also avoiding incoming damage, right? Because a lot of times you'll have the opportunity for a ranged class ranged class is sometimes choosing between getting a better position
Están hablando un poquito, si no me equivoco, del druida.
Damage per second. And a melee class is sometimes choosing between taking damage, because even with the case of a projectile, the projectiles originating in many cases from the monster and then traveling. So you have less time to react in some cases.
Como los personajes de melee a veces eligen tomar daño, como los personajes de rango eligen esquivar. Y claro, el druida es una clase mixta, entonces
we're much more deadly to melee classes, and we adjusted some of those abilities. Now, this also affects the necromancer class, because you might notice that we had a note here that states that summon minions will die more often.
Ya que el nigromante simplemente invocaba minions
to have sort of an economy. We want to have
y no morían tan seguido, entonces ahora hicieron que los bichos de los nigromantes murieran más seguido, con tal de que los jugadores se metan más en eso, claro.
So we want them to be,
básicamente están hablando de eso, están hablando de los cambios.
We want to make sure that there are plenty of corpses, so you're not going into a boss and running out of, like, oh, I don't have any pets and I'm a pet builder. You certainly want to make sure that you have pets available.
Aquí dice,
we want them to be kind of coming back from time to time. So
algunos bonus del libro de los muertos se han incrementado. El daño de explosión de cuerpo ha sido reducido.
Where bosses are doing too much damage to melee. We also took a look at cases where there were abilities that felt unfair for pets. Where there was just like a huge damage in a huge area, and maybe it's no problem for a player to get out of it, but trying to micromanage your pets to get out of this.
Perdón, en este momento estoy haciendo una mierda de traducción, lo siento.
That's not a fun gameplay that we're trying to capture specifically with the necromancer class. So we modified the damage that those kinds of powers do to pets, both necromancer and druid pets, in fact.
Yeah, we do want to make sure that managing your minions to some degree
básicamente han ajustado bastante las mascotas para que se sientan un poco más justas.
Skeletons go down, you need to accommodate
that,
and make sure that you have corpses that you've been generating or keeping on hold for some of these situations. We feel that is definitely part of the fantasy of the necromancer class is needing to resummon, to your point, these kind of disposable soldiers that are supposed to be helping you. So we want to make sure that continues to hold true, but not to a point where like an armed necro can't go fight bosses.
Vale, quieren asegurarse que sea posible tener tu ejército de esqueletos, pero que no esté OP.
Now another,
I did get to play the summoner necro, and I was summoning my minions regularly, so it was something that was a continuous part of the gameplay, but I never found myself in a position where, I'm out of minions, I'm out of corpses.
Básicamente Riker diciendo su experiencia que nunca se quedó sin minions, nunca tuvo...
I'll admit that passive minions is not my favorite playstyle. I love the ability to direct them,
problemas, básicamente,
for what you intended to accomplish, I felt you did.
Yeah, so, one of the other areas of feedback, we have a note here that says, that might be a little bit confusing. It says, we reviewed the class skills to confirm that there were good options to get out of control impairing effects. In many cases, what we mean is unstoppable, which is the effect in Diablo 4 that clears all control impairing effects, crowd control effects.
Están hablando de un cambio que se hizo, de que todas las clases ahora van a tener al menos una habilidad que te permita ser, digamos, imparable. Básicamente deshacerte de los cooldowns, deshacerte de los ralentizamientos y todas esas cosas. Y claro, vieron feedback durante la beta que algunas clases no tenían esas herramientas, entonces no se sentía bien.
I don't remember it being an issue at the high levels of play, no. Going back to my favorites, Barbarian now is my second favorite after being my fourth. Again, yeah, the melee playstyle I felt gelled really well with a high-level Barbarian. It all came together. I didn't feel I was being punished for being in melee. I didn't feel constantly crowd-controlled or an inability to gap
close. Diciendo básicamente que se siente ya bastante cómodo peleando con personajes cuerpo a cuerpo. No sentía que estaba en una desventaja, porque eso fue un gran feedback de la beta, que algunos personajes de melee tenían problemas, básicamente, en alcanzar a los enemigos.
I think, some people called out Hydra changes.
Claro, ahora están hablando quizás del Sorcerer.
To classes. There are also some cases like legendary powers. We updated legendary power.
No, solo da sort of vague,
but it's really just that there are a bunch of small details, and we're sort of tweaking them. The other thing I want to talk about is dungeons. Right?
Vale, quieren hablar de Dungeons ahora. Saltaron un poquito lo que vendría a ser el pícaro y la maga, que tenían ciertos ajustes de daño, sobre todo. La maga, bueno, de ahí lo podemos conversar.
First off, of course, if we have a situation where you're running back, we have a system that causes monsters to ambush you to make sure that it's not just running through an empty space. So we added more ambushes.
Vale, han agregado más emboscadas a los calabozos. Y cambiaron la forma de los dungeons. Vale, esto es un cambio también que está confirmado, que hicieron que los puntos de objetivo de los calabozos estén más alineados con el camino que tú sigues a través del calabozo. De eso están hablando en este momento. Entonces básicamente aquí nos muestran una imagen de cómo eran los dungeons, cómo eran los calabozos durante la beta, y podemos ver que el camino que tú sigues en amarillo básicamente no te topabas con ningún objetivo, por lo tanto te podías perder evidentemente los objetivos, y en este punto tenías que devolverte, hacer los objetivos, y tenías demasiado lo que se llama backtracking, y esto resultaba bastante incómodo. Entonces aquí nos muestran uno nuevo, entonces tú vas simplemente avanzando, y claro, a medida que pasas por tu camino, pasas por el objetivo mucho más cerca de lo que vendría a ser. No hay forma, bueno, hay forma, claro, de desviarte, pero claro, llegas a un punto cerrado. Y claro, aún así es mucho más fácil encontrarte con los objetivos. Aquí hay otro, por cierto. También, no sé si están hablando de esto de fondo, no estoy escuchando lo que están diciendo de fondo, pero había otro cambio, y es que van a motivar mucho más la exploración de los lugares extras, porque van a poner más eventos. Si no me equivoco, triplicaron la posibilidad de la aparición de eventos, o la hicieron incluso 6 veces más grande. No recuerdo bien el número exacto. Están los cambios, está el link que les dejé ahí en el chat. Sin embargo, mira, aquí tenemos otro ejemplo. Básicamente entrabas, durante la beta entrabas, tenías que hacer un objetivo, luego devolverte, continuar. Entonces, claro, los objetivos estaban muy lejos de un camino, o del camino que tú podías llegar a seguir, porque claro, esto era incómodo, porque en el momento en que tenías que desviarte, tenías que devolverte, y devolverte no es cómodo. Pero lo que estaba diciendo, han modificado esto, no solo con tal de que los objetivos estén más cerca de la línea que sueles seguir, sino que también han puesto más objetivos adicionales, secundarios, completamente opcionales por los costados, que deberían darte también más recompensas. Entonces también están motivando el hecho de que tú explores todo el dungeon. Puedes hacer el dungeon de corrido más rápido, mucho más cómodo, con todos los objetivos por tu camino, pero también puedes desviarte y farmear, claro, nuevos objetos o un montón de cositas si te empiezas a desviar. Entonces, este es un cambio muy bueno, en mi opinión, es un cambio muy bueno. El hecho de que, claro, pongan los objetivos más en la línea principal y por los lados tengas cosas adicionales. Vamos a concentrarnos en lo que nos están diciendo de fondo, por si están diciendo algo más interesante. Aquí tenemos un ejemplo de bien hecho. Vale, vas por el camino y te los encuentras. Tienes muy poquito backtracking, está todo esto alrededor. Vale, están hablando de una misión concreta en la que tenías que matar a todos los monstruos dentro del dungeon para seguir avanzando. Y claro, después de que habías, por ejemplo, matado 49 de los 50 monstruos que estaban en el calabozo, pues tenías que devolverte y encontrar el maldito bicho que no se te había escapado o estaba en una esquina y no podías seguir avanzando porque había un monstruo que se te había saltado. Por lo tanto, si no me equivoco, uno de los cambios es que ahora no necesitas matarlos a todos. No estoy muy seguro, tendrías que escuchar esta otra parte porque había cierto... Perdón, no puse atención, estaba pensando en mis propias ideas. Pero ahora, decir esto de matar a todos los monstruos es mucho más amigable.
When players are collecting this animal when they're running around the dungeon trying to find all these creatures and do these things, you're going to also gain various buffs by picking these up. You're going to gain some resource back for your class.
Vale, están hablando de los objetivos adicionales que están por todo, van a estar por las zonas adicionales, por así decirlo, del dungeon. Y claro, vas a ganar algunas bonificaciones y cosas de ese estilo.
Yeah, so I'm glad you pointed out kill all monsters because players rightly identified a couple of key problems. Like first off, with kill all monsters, of course, if you're having to go and hunt down one of those monsters, that's effectively backtracking, right? You're running through an empty space. And the other aspect of it is that the sort of the intensity curve of like the excitement in the dungeon is going down. Like you're backtracking through a bunch of empty space.
Dice que básicamente
and then when you get there,
cuando te devuelves, lo que se llama el backtracking, que tienes que devolverte por un dungeon, se vuelve menos emocionante, evidentemente.
I guess that was a requirement that I had to check
one
off.
spider.
Right?
Yeah, it's almost
claro,
similar to like
el tema de que se te queda un solo bicho
ahí atrás. Being able to seek you out means less backtracking, less hunting
muy
that one fallen or wherever.
Well, yeah, and the other thing I like about it is that it increases the intensity at the end of the dungeon, right? Because you have the monsters. You're still clearing the last monsters, and now you have monsters running at you. What was your experience with these?
Vale, parece que ahí decían uno de los cambios es que los monstruos van hacia ti. Entonces no tienes que estarlos buscando porque los monstruos te van persiguiendo un poco.
I have to run back or I have to go look for a monster. And with these changes, I don't think I ever had one of those moments, or at least I'm not going to say that.
Vale, Riker, que probó la nueva versión del juego, que no lo ha podido probar demasiada gente, dice que casi no tenía estos problemas de que tenía que devolverse a matar un monstruo que no había matado. Entonces, dice que está mucho mejor.
If you do go on a side path, there could be things to run into, but just overall, everything from an experience standpoint just flows a lot better.
Y dice que claro, la experiencia fluye mucho mejor debido a todos estos cambios que se han hecho a los dungeons.
We actually had a big question in
Saludos,
regards
Byron.
to dungeons and reset.
Bienvenido al directo.
Resetting dungeons and how that actually works. And I do want to take some time for you guys to be able to clarify a little bit because there's tons of questions. And then we tried to clarify, and I think we made it worse.
Dicen que claro, hay un montón de preguntas y en algunos casos intentar contestarlas hace peor toda la situación. Así
we added
que,
this button earlier in development when
a
there
ver, ¿qué botón?
wasn't
Vale,
an
creo que
easy
es el
way for
botón de
dungeons to
reiniciar
reset
dungeons.
naturally. And
A
in
ver.
fact, the way we added it led to some undesirable secondary effects because it was instant. It didn't care if you were inside the dungeon. It doesn't care if the dungeon is.
Vale, sí, hablan del botón de
completed.
reiniciar dungeons que estaba
If
en
you're
la
a
beta.
hardcore character and you're in danger, you can just press it and
Get out.
presto, you're all good. And
Y tenía algunas interacciones extrañas al parecer.
Button, the amount of time for dungeons to reset organically, we've been working with our online team and we've been making changes to, over the course of development, like how Town Portal works, how dungeon reset work. And so the way that it works today, if you are outside the dungeon, and if everyone from your party is outside the dungeon, so if you're alone,
Estás afuera de un dungeon
and there are no town portals open in the dungeon,
y no hay portales
then the
hacia
dungeon
dentro
will
del
naturally
dungeon.
reset over a period of about 60 seconds, about 30 seconds of matchmaking and 30 seconds of cleanup. Or if it's partially completed, like maybe you got halfway through and you're like, you know what, I have to do something else. I'm going to go, kill a world boss, or I want to do something else now. Then it'll take a little bit longer to reset. It takes about 150 seconds, but it'll still reset naturally pretty quickly.
Vale, dicen básicamente que los dungeons se reinician de forma natural y dependiendo de qué tanto esté hecho, por así decirlo, dentro del dungeon, tarda más o menos en reiniciarse de forma natural.
One of your friends joins and they want to do that side quest too, right? But maybe you've already completed it in this dungeon.
Entonces, claro, aquí están viendo posibilidades de que si un amigo quiere hacerlo contigo, de...
Dungeon button right in the UI as well. It does have a short cast time, so
not as quick, yeah.
But it's quite it's right through the UI. You can do it from anywhere. And invite the other person to the party, to your friend to the party, make them leader, hop in, you'll get a fresh dungeon as well.
Yeah, so hopefully that clarifies. You can still reset that.
Por ejemplo,
Resetting dungeons is still
el
a
dungeon
thing,
depende
in
del líder de
D4.
la
It's just
party,
we
por lo tanto
removed the
puedes
buttons
cambiar, por ejemplo, al
essentially,
líder de la party y
you
tienes un
would just have
dungeon
to wait a
fresco.
little bit longer for
Interesante.
the dungeons themselves to reset. And I did want to go over two two specific changes that are we also
Vale, van a hablar
obtained
de
through
dos
beta that we
cambios
didn't actually
concretos.
report on the blog. One you actually tweeted about, which was
Uno fue tuiteado.
ultra wide screens,
Yes.
and being able to control
en
past,
la resolución ultra
distance
wide,
and so
la
forth, with specific
21:9
abilities and
creo que
whatnot.
es.
So people who are using ultra wide or mega ultra wide screens wouldn't be able to.
Vale, dice que la gente con pantallas
cast to
muy
the
anchas.
furthest corner of their screen.
No, claro,
and
hay
be able to use
soporte, pero no van a
abilities in
poder
that
ver
type of way.
absolutamente todo. No
And
van a
then
poder
one
ver
other
un
thing that
punto
we
muy,
did
muy,
notice
muy
during
lejano.
beta, which was world
El otro
boss
cambio
encounters and how players would actually complete a world boss encounter and then go back to town and then
Tiene que ver
find
con los
another
bosses
way
de
of
mundo.
being able to, in that same window, go through another world boss encounter to obtain
interesante.
multiple opportunities of grabbing loot, which is something that we also did address through the
Vale, al
beta
parecer en
learnings
la beta
that
lo
we
que hacía la gente a
received
veces
from
era
players. So,
matar a un
It's
world
true.
boss,
Now,
un
I'll
boss de
point out
mundo,
that,
volver al poblado y volver al boss de mundo y
time
matarlo
you kill
otra
a
vez
boss,
debido a que era durante
you
una
are gonna
ventana de
get
tiempo.
more loot,
Y por lo tanto eso lo han modificado, al parecer han solucionado ese tema
less incentive
y
to
ya no
try
se
to,
puede abusar de eso.
find a way to
Interesante.
kill the same world boss 10 times, but you certainly will get some rewards from
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah, so it's not the exact rewards or a clone
Vale,
of the rewards
lo
we
que
got in the
han
first
hecho al
couple
parecer es
themselves.
disminuir las recompensas.
Great. I know
Más que nada.
we ended up learning a ton from the community in regards to the beta. Obviously, you guys got to hear a little bit about the endgame systems within Diablo 4. We do have a cool... What's
Is it
this?
time for a surprise?
It's a time for a
Vale,
surprise.
se viene
It is
una
time for a
sorpresa, al
surprise.
parecer.
Oh. Wait, what?
Esto era oficial,
If you've been,
que se viene una
hiding on the
sorpresa, no
internet
sabemos
and
de
have
qué
not seen Rod
es la
Ferguson
sorpresa.
Make very, very nonchalant tweets about this.
Sorpresa.
And more.
This is the and more of the actual.
Ok, hay mucha expectativa de esta sorpresa. Vamos.
So happy to announce that we've been hearing a lot of feedback from players about wanting to experience more Diablo 4 and check it out, before the game's release in June.
Vale, hablan de que
And so,
mucha gente
on
les
May
ha dicho
12th
que...
through May 14th, we are going to be hosting a server slam event
Wait.
where all players within Diablo 4 or who want to play Diablo 4 can jump
Básicamente,
in and actually check out the game again. This
van
is a
a
really
hacer
important
otro
weekend
fin
for
de
the
semana
team and
de
the dev
prueba
team here
gratuita para
because
Diablo
we
en
need as
mayo,
many people
del
to
2 al
really log
14.
in, check out Diablo 4 and play through the game.
Vale, esa es la
because
sorpresa al
we need to
parecer.
test out our servers some more before we actually launch.
Van a hacer un
Joe, I know
testeo de servers,
you have a
un
lot
stress test.
Want and need and emphasis towards this specific weekend. So
Y claro, va a ser en mayo del 12 al 14. Se va a poder probar Diablo 4 nuevamente completamente gratis. Eso está muy bien, pero yo esperaba alguna sorpresa más.
Yeah, so huge news right there. Where if you want to check out any of the
Vale,
changes that we
será la
made from
sorpresa.
beta,
Básicamente tenemos
you will be
otra
able to
beta
actually check them
abierta
out,
de Diablo 4.
that weekend on May 12th or May 14th.
That's right. And the other thing I want to point out is that we recently announced that we've gone gold, that Diablo 4 has gone gold.
Vale, recientemente se ha anunciado que Diablo 4 está
that,
técnicamente terminado en su
we
versión
got all of
Gold.
those changes from the betas in. We did tons of, server. We learned a ton of stuff in terms of our servers, in terms of server configuration, making sure that we were fixing bugs. We deployed hotfixes during those 2 weekends.
Mejorado un poquito el juego, eso es lo que significa estar en Gold ya.
Improve our confidence for launch through
claro,
that, and that's why we
pues están en una mucho mejor posición para todo esto.
The purpose of this weekend is to slam those servers, right? Really make sure that
lo que quieren hacer es que de verdad durante este fin de semana que va a ser prueba gratuita, mayo 12 a 14, literalmente lo que quieren hacer es golpear lo más fuerte que puedan a los servidores para probarlos. Es un, literalmente dicen server slam, muy del estilo de hacer un tackle, de golpear lo más fuerte que puedan. Se están invitando a la comunidad a que vayan a hacer trizas del servidor.
When you participate in the Diablo 4 Server Slam, you're going to have another chance to earn the rewards.
Dice que vas a tener otra oportunidad para conseguir los cosméticos de bonificación de la beta.
Or for any other reason, you have another chance to get your Beta Wolf Pack cosmetic and the 2 titles.
Parece que vamos a tener un título adicional.
For this Server Slam weekend, we've set the level cap to level 20. We've adjusted the legendary drop rates to be consistent with what you'll see on live.
Vale, va a ser una prueba mucho más realista del juego con el drop mucho más realista. Porque en la beta estaba aumentado y te caían muchas más cosas. Y además,
you're going to have 48 hours to slam these servers, right? Now, during this time,
vas a tener 48 horas
starting about 24 hours after the servers go up, and then every 3 hours after that. So you can have,
y 24 horas después de que inicia, y cada 3 horas vamos a tener un boss de mundo para que la gente lo pruebe.
While you are level 20, so max level in this test, in this period of time.
What level is it though?
20.
It's 20. So you got to be level 20 to get
don't show
vale,
up
y aquí nos dan, claro, nos están diciendo que nos van a dar un trofeo para la montura, básicamente un cosmético de montura, aquí lo van a mostrar si derrotas al boss de mundo durante esta prueba de beta. Y una de las garras del es como un... ¿Qué es eso? Es como un... Es como una vasija. Oh, qué extraño.
Mount trophies in Diablo are cosmetic customizations that you can add to your mount along with mount armor.
Sí, nos dicen que básicamente estos son los trofeos, son básicamente cosméticos que le agregas al caballo, a la montura. En este caso, al parecer es, no sé si se puede poner en otro lugar, pero básicamente aquí tenemos el caballo y esto que tenemos aquí al costado, este cuerno enorme, es básicamente el cosmético que puedes ganar si participas en esta beta y matas al boss de mundo. Vas a poder jugar con todas las clases. Básicamente va a ser lo mismo que la beta, pero claro, con todos los cambios que se hicieron con el feedback de la primera beta.
and obtain the rewards and really
Interesante,
help us out,
muy,
help
muy,
out the
muy,
team,
muy interesante.
and make sure that we have a smooth launch for Diablo 4 come June. So,
Entonces,
huge news for all of this.
del
And we will have a
12
blog that will
al
be going
14.
either live right now or live immediately after the broadcast for players to actually read about all this information, and that will be available on diablo4.com. So
nos
make
dicen
sure
que van
to check out the blog,
van
get
a
all your
tener
information there,
un
and
pequeño blog, una
jump
pequeña
in
noticia.
on our Server Slam
Estoy
weekend, March
apretando
12th
algo
to
nada
March
que ver.
14th. It's another opportunity to play Diablo
Para,
4
claro, leer todo
before
lo
the
que se ha
launch, which is
dicho
really great. And you can test all the
durante
new beta
este
changes,
streaming.
which is really cool.
De
And one
momento
other thing
el
that I do want
artículo
to
no
note for
existe
at
aún,
least
así que
PC
no les puedo
players
dejar
who
link.
are jumping into the Server Slam weekend,
Y básicamente aquí nos siguen invitando a que
team here has
participemos
done some massive work on
de
some of the
este
PC
testeo de servidores, que la idea, claro, es golpear los servidores lo más duro posible.
DLSS3 for
¡Oh!
NVIDIA cards will also be available.
Va a estar
for,
disponible
people to try out in,
DLSS 3
the
durante
Server
esta
Slam
beta para
weekends.
las gráficas
Our Server
NVIDIA.
Slam
Interesante.
weekend. Sorry, there's only one. I don't want to like set expectations or anything. But there's more graphic options and optimizations and so forth for PC.
Hay más
players to check
optimización,
out.
van a haber más opciones de gráficos.
Yeah, looking forward to everyone really hitting the servers and really helping out with the game. We do want to jump into Q&A because we always end with Q&A. Riker actually has a bunch of questions that he was asking
va a
his
haber
own community
pilas para entrar,
that we
así
will
que,
most definitely go through as well.
Pues
and then we're also going to be grabbing some questions here from chat and so
parte del
forth.
testeo.
One question that we have been seeing
Van a
that has come
contestar
up
ahora
within the
preguntas.
community beforehand, and we'll start off with this one. Which is like, how long will it take us to get through the battle pass? It's a question that a lot of people.
¿Cuánto
in the
vas a
community
tardar
talking about
básicamente
over the
en
last week,
completar
week
el
and a half.
Battle Pass
I
del
know
juego?
that we
Que el
wanted to
Battle
talk
Pass del
about it a
juego
little bit
hay uno
more.
gratuito y uno premium. El premium, por cierto, es solamente de cosméticos y el gratuito tiene algunas ventajas que todos evidentemente puedes conseguir. Y ahora nos van a decir cuánto tardas en completar básicamente el Battle Pass. Dicen que quieren asegurarse que tengamos mucho contenido por Battle Pass.
You know, so there's a ton of things to look forward to. We want to make sure that the Battle Pass's result is balanced in such a way that players of all types and all play styles are able to get a chance to actually complete this this Battle Pass over the course of time. Our goal is, like, if you want to start to engage with this, we want to make sure that you are compelled to go through all of it as you're playing and just having a good time getting all of these rewards.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Creo que no contestaron bien la pregunta. El caso, tenemos un poquito de información de esto. Al parecer, el objetivo del Battle Pass es que lo completes durante la temporada. Básicamente, un Battle Pass, entre comillas, se termina en 3 meses, que es lo que dura una temporada. Sin embargo, eso quizás está orientado a un jugador más casual. Por lo tanto, muy probablemente si eres un jugador de mucho vicio, lo puedas completar en 1 o 2 semanitas, el pase de batalla.
So we want to make sure that we've got a subset of the dungeons we have in the overall game. There's over 115 or so like side dungeons available in the baseline Diablo 4 experience. We want to take a subset of those each season. The exact number we're working on is going to be, we're going to think about that and think about it. But a number of those will be rotated every season to make sure that we are highlighting different kinds of objectives, different sorts of layouts, different monster families, just different experiences. And we also don't want players to feel that they're going to have this where they have to be thinking about, you know, all 115 different dungeons every season, every time.
Vale, no quieren que los jugadores piensen que en cada temporada los jugadores van a tener que hacer. Van a tener que hacer. No quieren que el jugador crea que va a tener que hacer, por ejemplo, todos los calabozos de nuevo.
I'm not going to butcher Twitch names, guys. I do this every stream. From a Twitch user in chat.
Okay, pregunta de Twitch.
Do you have any plans to keep interest for people who don't plan to play in seasons?
¿Cómo planean mantener el interés de las personas que no juegan temporada?
We're not quite ready to talk about like all of our seasonal plans and all of our post-launch plans yet, but I will say this: that we're going to be having a lot of like really rich and interesting content updates for our seasonal players. But we're still making balance changes and adding new legendary items and like unique items and things of that nature.
Dice que van a ir agregando nuevo contenido, evidentemente para la temporada, pero también van a estar todo el los parches de balance, los nuevos objetos. Y claro, gran parte de las mejoras también para lo que no es temporada. Ahora, claro, en temporadas va a haber todo un contenido
December press
diferente,
beta
por
to
así
the
decirlo,
public
entonces
beta
van a estar muy
was that
interesantes.
changes were made to the skill tree. There were like new passive skills, there were new paths made amongst the passive nodes. So I'm wondering, was the skill tree designed in such a way that you can, over the course of seasons or expansions, add new passive or active skills?
Yes.
Hablan de la extensión del árbol de el árbol de habilidades. Piensan extender los árboles de habilidades en el futuro. Nuevas habilidades pasivas, nuevas habilidades en general.
These kinds of updates, particularly of like new passives, like new nodes, new things in the skill tree, more likely to happen as part of our our future larger like expansion size updates.
Vale, pero muy probablemente serán a través de o durante contenido de expansión. No a través de las temporadas necesariamente.
Okay.
We've been seeing this question a lot. I've been seeing it in chat as well. And there's
vale, aquí hay otra pregunta del chat.
Altars Lilith, how those will work in between seasons, or will those reset? Like, how does that specifically work?
Vale, hablan de un coleccionable dentro del juego.
One of the features that players can go and collect basically in the overworld, going to contribute to their renown.
A ver, quiero poner atención para no perderme bien esto.
Well, and give permanent character power as well.
Well, I'm going to get there.
Okay.
So there's two purposes really that the Elders Little have. They have this larger collectible feature where you want to kind of go get all of them for the.
Ahí hablan de los coleccionables, la idea, evidentemente, es coleccionarlos, tenerlos todos.
So renown is reset on a seasonal basis. So when you start a new character. Your renown score goes back down to 0. You have to go and finish side dungeons, go do side quests, go find Altars of Lilith, go do these things in order to kind of get that renown back up to unlock all of those benefits. Now, you don't need to go do all of that content in the zone to max out your renown bar. There's actually way more activities that grant renown than you actually need to complete in order to finish going through and filling up all of the renown and getting all 5 tiers of the rewards. When it comes to the stat gain, so basically, to your point that you're just speaking about, Altars of Lilith also have another purpose. And that when you find one, they give you a stat boost that's supposed to apply to your character and all characters in that realm. The way that's going to work is that once you've collected that stat boost from a specific Altar of Lilith, that stat effect is going to propagate out to other characters of that game type. So basically,
estos coleccionables te dan bonificaciones, de stats. Por lo tanto, cuando desbloqueas una estatua, se propaga a tus demás personajes. Por lo tanto, si lo vuelves a coleccionar con otro personaje, no debería darte, claro, esos beneficios adicionales. Por lo tanto, no es necesario, claro, coleccionar todas las estatuas de Lilith, en este caso, que son los coleccionables.
But you do want to get some of them. They do still grant experience, and they do give you some bonus towards your boost towards
Dice que igual quizás los quieras conseguir porque dan experiencia y porque te dan como una especie de reputación que sirve para desbloquear otras cosas, pero no es esencial básicamente coleccionarlas todas. De temporada, que es un modo que se reinicia cada X tiempo, por lo tanto hay mucha preocupación de todo lo que vas a tener que rehacer durante temporadas. Corsan Games sí va a haber una beta del 12 al 14 de mayo. No sé si estás por aquí todavía.
Is there any other kind of item types where either you can only get this item in this zone, this location, or is there some greater propensity for some items to drop off certain monsters?
Vale, pregunta que si van a haber objetos ligados a localizaciones, si caen en un lugar y no en otro, por ejemplo.
World bosses, for example, have a really good chance to drop Scattered Prism, which is the crafting material you need in order to add sockets to items in the game. And then there are certain content types that have the chance to grant certain materials, like Fiend Roast.
Dice que
really only shows up in
algunos materiales se pueden conseguir en ciertos lugares concretos.
When it comes to item farming, we also, and I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I think it's good to remind people, and also just to continue talking about it, right? Because it's a new mechanic. And that is that when you're fighting creatures of a certain monster family, like zombies or skeletons for their respective families, those monsters have a higher chance to drop certain kinds of items. It's actually a bonus chance to drop certain item types.
Dependiendo de qué monstruo estás matando, tienes más probabilidades de encontrar ciertos objetos.
They have a chance to drop crossbows, irrespective of your class. So you're playing a barbarian, which can't use crossbows as one of its weapon types, and you could be killing all these skeletons. And you might
por ejemplo, esqueletos tienen una alta probabilidad de darte ballestas.
But that's not taking a roll from the skeleton. It could drop everything else in addition to that crossbow.
Y obviamente, más probabilidades no significa que no arroje más cosas, simplemente Va a arrojar más ballestas, pero va a arrojar absolutamente de todo. Básicamente, ahí es como mixto, por así decirlo, el loot focalizado, por llamarlo de alguna manera.
They will uncover the right areas or the best areas potentially to farm for certain kinds of things, and that includes like unique items as well.
Aquí hablan de que tal vez algunos jugadores van a querer farmear en una área concreta para quizás conseguir, por ejemplo, o tener más probabilidades de conseguir un objeto que quieran.
That's not the end. There's a lot more we're going to be doing as the game continues to mature and as we're going into like our post-launch period. But you know, we'll talk about that when the time's right.
Evidentemente, las cosas pueden ir cambiando a medida que vaya avanzando el juego.
Some of the server slam stuff that we just announced, which is, will there be any additional changes made to the game after the server slam weekend, like what was done during the beta?
Hablan de que si habrá más modificaciones.
We announced that the game has gone gold. The Server Slam you're testing a version of the game that is very close.
Básicamente, la prueba que vamos a hacer el 12 y 14 de mayo va a ser la versión final del juego. Es decir, no van a haber más cambios mayores para el juego final. Básicamente se van a corregir quizás algunos errores, va a ser corrección del tema de los servidores, pero no va a haber grandes cambios de esa versión, de la versión del 12 al 14 de mayo hasta la versión final del juego.
Overlay is what we had in the past in D2, where you have this semi-transparency of the large-scale map over your actual gameplay. D4 does not have an overlay map. A lot of people are asking for it. What's the reason for no overlay?
Vale. Una pequeña discusión de que no está este mapa con overlay. Básicamente en Diablo 2 podías tú tener tu mapa alrededor de toda la pantalla de forma transparente y podías ver el mapa al mismo tiempo que tu personaje. Y aquí están explicando por qué no lo pusieron en Diablo 4.
I just killed those monsters. Okay, where am I going to go? Is there an objective to the left or right? Right, and so the overlay map is very effective at doing that.
Vale.
In fact, it's so effective that it's up that there's no reason to ever close it. And so there are a lot of solutions that we've seen different games do in terms
hablando
of
de las ventajas del mapa con overlay o el overlay de mapa.
Effects on combat in terms of fading areas around the player or other things like that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the combat and navigation spaces as clean as possible. By separating them a little bit more. So
vale, lo quieren separar para que la navegación y el combate sean lo más claros posible. Entonces los separan claro para que uno tenga mejor vista de cada uno por separado.
Our goal is to make sure that players when they're going back and forth between combat mode and navigation mode, that they have the tools that they need to do it efficiently and they don't feel like it's a huge hassle. So we're going to be continuing to look at this feedback.
El jugador cuando se enfoca en combate tenga lo mejor para el combate y cuando se enfoca en navegación, en lo que es moverse por el mundo, tenga las mejores herramientas para navegación o quizás buenas herramientas en general.
We have a question saying, are all dungeons going to be single floor iterations with halls like traversing, or are we going to get like maybe multi-level dungeons or anything?
Hablan de que si vamos a tener dungeons con diferentes niveles o pisos.
You know, it's interesting that one of the things that we did in Diablo 4 that's really cool is that you don't have to load between dungeon floors. An interesting effect of that is that you might not always notice when you're going down a floor into a lower floor. There is there are staircases and
básicamente nos dicen que algo interesante del juego es que a veces tú bajas efectivamente un piso en un dungeon, pero no te das cuenta que sucede porque es parte todo del mismo mapa, es parte toda de la misma carga.
In terms of when you think back to Diablo 1 and adventuring down through the cathedral, and it's this very deep dungeon. Our dungeon tech can certainly do that too.
Básicamente, los dungeons de Diablo 4 lo hacen, pero como es más fluido, evidentemente uno no nota, piensa que es simplemente un solo piso, pero lo cierto es que sí son varios pisos y simplemente tienen una transición fluida.
Yeah, you will see 4-man squads ganking lonely players. I want to make sure I'm really clear about this. The fields of hatred that we have in Diablo 4 are not a place for honor. They're a place for slaughter. So if you go into those spaces, you need to be mindful that you are entering a chaotic realm of danger and threat. That's the fantasy. That's what we're trying to do. Now, players who go into spaces might also be fortunate and find that there's a number of other players that are trying to peacefully farm up, in various resources while they're fighting there, and not actually be interested in engaging in PvP immediately. That also is a situation you might occasionally find yourself in. Maybe you decide you want to take advantage of them, and you show up and decide that you want to go and gank those players and take their things. Greed gets the best of us all at some point in time. But I want to make it really clear that there are things in place in terms of how we bucket players by level and things like that to ensure that you're not always be going up against like really, really high level players at very, very low level.
Primero, nos está confirmando de que va a haber un cierto equilibrio entre jugadores. Un jugador nivel bajo contra un jugador de nivel alto no deberían tener gran diferencia.
The answer is there is no mechanic in place to prevent that from occurring. So you need to be mindful of that when you're walking around here. Go in there with friends, or walk in and be prepared to occasionally die. Especially when you immediately walk into a field of hatred, if you were to immediately get killed by other players.
Vale, están hablando de las zonas PvP, que las zonas PvP
start to acquire any of the PvP resources in that zone yet anyway. So they have nothing to gain from killing, and you have nothing to lose as a result of that death. So, things to experiment with, but going with the right set of expectations.
But there is some pseudo matchmaking to stop like level 100 players ganking level 25 players.
That's correct. There is some bucketing in place to make sure that doesn't
Van a haber ciertos emparejamientos para que
the fields
claro,
of
no haya
large
tantas desventajas.
Yes.
So there are some tools to avoid the same group of players repeatedly killing you. There are also two fields of hatred.
También
move between fields of hatred.
Dicen que hay ciertas herramientas para evitar que ciertos jugadores te maten constantemente o que, claro, juegues constantemente con el mismo jugador.
You feel like you're at a disadvantage. There are also, when you think about the fields of hatred mechanic, you're collecting these shards of hatred, and you're refining them so that you can turn them in for rewards. The locations that you can do that, there are several locations, typically active at a time. So you can sort of do some strategizing about where there might be enemy players and where it might be safe.
That's right. When an altar is being used to purify those shards of hatred into red dust, you'll actually see a notification on your map.
Interesante. A ver, para que lo entiendan, en las zonas PvP, tú vas coleccionando ciertos, digamos, una moneda especial, que luego para poder utilizarla tienes que purificarla. Y al parecer, cuando tú intentas purificar esa moneda especial, le llega una notificación a los demás jugadores que lo estás intentando hacer. Y claro, si ellos te matan, pueden robarte esta moneda especial. Si mueres, puedes perderla, así que wow, el tema de las notificaciones va a estar complicado.
We'll be actually focusing a little bit on our seasonal structure as well as battle pass and so forth. So we're actually going to leave those comments specifically for that. I keep looking down at the monitor and the people in production behind me keep going, Adam, what's wrong with you? That's just me. In regards to other quick questions that we do have, I'm going to just lightning off a few questions that have been coming up. These are kind of related, I would say, but one is a co-op on PC. Have we looked at doing something like that?
Están preguntando si va a haber co-op
mouse and keyboard on console. Is that something that we've also looked into?
A ver, co-op o multijugador en PC, por ejemplo, 2 personas en un computador o teclado en consolas.
Mainly because, as you guys know, PC, like the account structure on Battle.net and having 2 accounts at the same time on one PC is a little
básicamente,
difficult.
Co-op en PC,
and then on console, right now it's just controller play. And, as we get past launch and so forth, we'll look
a ver, el tema del teclado, no sé si lo dijeron, pero hay un tuit oficial de Rod Ferguson, creo que era, que en consola solamente el juego va a soportar los controles oficiales de consola. Por lo tanto, presumiblemente, mouse y teclado en consola no.
Killing monsters, collecting loot, screwing around with that loot to do fun things and make it get more performance out of it, modifying those things, looking for the right affix. Yeah, we're going to absolutely continue to be just changing some of the crafting options.
Claro, evidentemente dice que van a ir habiendo cambios para el crafteo de los objetos, como los vas consiguiendo.
Diablo 4 is a live service because it's a rich.
Y habla de que va a ser un live service, un juego de servicio, básicamente un juego que va evolucionando con el tiempo. Así que podemos esperar que hayan
Awesome.
cambios a medida de que vaya
Last
avanzando el
few small
juego.
questions.
Ok,
People have been asking about
unas
ray
últimas
tracing,
preguntas.
because we mentioned the NVIDIA DLSS 3.
Por cierto, de nuevo lo está
will be coming
mencionando
in the
DLSS.
SummerSlam. Ray tracing is coming after launch. It's
DLSS3
something that we had
para
talked about
tarjetas
earlier.
NVIDIA van a estar disponibles en la beta
Let's see.
del 12 y el 14 de mayo.
This is an interesting question. If you're on your mount, can you actually pick up crafting materials and stuff like that?
Vale,
While
una
you're
pregunta
on
que
your
si estás
mount
montado en tu
in
montura, porque Diablo 4 va a tener
There are
montura,
a
vas a poder
number of
recoger
simple,
materiales,
actions
por
you can
ejemplo.
perform when you're on a mount. I believe right now you can pick up herbs when you're mounted. Yes.
Parece que
let's
puedes
see.
recoger algunas cosas mientras vas
The
montado.
chat's moving incredibly fast. A lot of people are talking about WASD movement right now. We don't
Dice
have
que
any
básicamente el
plans
chat
for
va demasiado
incorporating that.
rápido,
It's
entonces
something that we may look into post-launch or whatnot from our end. Cool. I think we got a decent amount of questions in. Talked about this, the beta learnings and of course
Vale.
all the information
Saludos,
about Endgame
Magnatus,
Server Slam.
bienvenido al
and the
directo.
Server Slam.
Ashaba
Está
Silver
terminando
Slam.
esto.
Yeah.
Yeah. On you mentioned WASD movement, so no WASD movement will not be in the game at launch, but in the Server Slam, do check out the additional control customization options that we added.
Yes.
They are referenced on the blog, and we want to
Wait.
continue to.
Parece
add
que
more,
acaban de decir algo
ways
importante. Hay un botón que
customize the control
la
scheme
comunidad
in the
pedía
way that you're
bastante,
thinking of. So, something that we're
que
thinking
creo
about.
que no va a estar disponible durante el
Thank you guys
lanzamiento. Eso es
again, and
importante.
thank you, Riker, for joining us this week. I
Un
know
botón
you've had
que los profesionales utilizan mucho, que es
opportunity to
creo que
play
el
through the
bloquear
game,
movimiento
quite a
o
lot.
algo muy
We've
del
just
estilo.
stuck 'em in the room.
Axel,
He's
saludos,
really just played the
bienvenido al
game
directo.
a ton this week. But we
Por cierto,
really appreciate everyone tuning in.
Cosas importantes.
Diablo 4 developer
Esto está
update
terminando,
live
vamos a
stream.
hacer un pequeño
Again,
resumen
our
quizás
next
de las
live
cosas
stream will be
importantes.
sometime in
Quizás
May, early May, and we'll be talking a little bit about our season structure as well as
Oh,
our
early
pass.
May, vale.
And a few other things that we did want to call out on in terms of Diablo
más?
3. We have season 28 currently
Momento,
going on right
momento.
now. It's an awesome season. Highly recommend checking
Check
it
it
out.
out.
Están hablando de
If
Diablo
you-
3,
If you haven't,
la temporada
and then, of course, the
28.
Diablo Immortal. They just came out with a big update about a week or two ago that added a new.
También hablan de Diablo
PvP
Immortal,
system
que
into the
también
game.
agregó
So
una
make
actualización
sure to
hace
check that
poco,
out if you-
concretamente
if you
fue el
haven't
10
as
de abril,
well.
si no mal
For
recuerdo.
Diablo 2, we do want to announce one quick thing
Oh.
as well, which is the Diablo 2 Season 4.
La temporada 4 de Diablo 2 comienza el mayo 4.
Will actually begin on May 4th.
May
So
the
we
4th
did want to
with
get
you.
that out so people can plan their calendars because it's always been a fun, exciting time within D2R for people to do the ladder race going as they kind of get prepped for it, take time off.
Vale.
Call out
Cositas
from work.
importantes de todo esto.
We'll
Nos
give you a
acaban de
doctor's
decir
note. It's perfect.
que
So,
a principios
but yes,
de
thank you
mayo
guys
vamos
again for,
van a hablar de las
tuning in
temporadas
to
de
the
Diablo 4, un
4
poquito
developer
cómo van a
update live stream.
funcionar.
And we really
Así que,
appreciate you guys
sumamente
and
importante.
appreciate the feedback, and thank you again, Riker.
Thank you so much.
Otra
for joining us.
cosa,
Yeah.
Any parting
en
words?
mayo 12, 13 y 14 de mayo vamos a tener una nueva beta abierta para Diablo 4. Esta va a ser ya la versión final de Diablo 4. Claro, va a estar limitada como la beta que tuvimos en abril, si no mal recuerdo. ¿Cuándo fue la beta? ¿Fue en abril? No, fue
We were
en
pretty sure it was
marzo.
doable, but we did want to check to make sure it was doable. They were like,
El caso,
yeah, okay, go
vamos a
on.
tener una nueva beta abierta durante 48 horas, 12, 13 y 14 de mayo, para Diablo 4, versión Gold, versión final limitada, claro, pero esa va a ser literalmente la versión final del juego.
And again, you can pre-purchase Diablo 4.
Y claro, aquí que se puede precomprar, pero a ver, no han dicho demasiado que no supiéramos antes. Cuando hay directos de Diablo Immortal, tengo que verlo, porque Diablo Immortal yo ya no lo estoy jugando en PC y solamente puedo hacer directos desde el PC, no desde el móvil. Tendría que probar un par de cositas para ver si se puede hacer, pero lo más probable es que directo de Immortal no pronto. No pronto, lo siento, Axel. Videos de Immortal, quizás. Tengo que verlo porque he estado un poquito... He estado mal, hay que decirlo. He estado mal, no he estado motivado por hacer videos. Es más, quería hacer este directo para un poquito motivarme con todo lo que era el tema de Diablo 4. Incluso comencé un par de minutos, bueno, un buen par de minutos tarde a reaccionar, por así decirlo, a esta actualización de desarrollo de Diablo 4. Porque estaba en otra cosa, estaba almorzando con unos familiares y pues claro, tenía que llegar a esto. El caso, a ver, cositas importantes. Lo primero que nos muestran aquí, mayo 12, 13, 14 van a hacer un test de servers. La idea es golpear los servidores, darles un slam lo más fuerte posible. Y claro, durante este periodo de tiempo va a ser completamente gratis probar Diablo 4. De la misma manera que fue la segunda beta de Diablo 4. Va a ser hasta nivel 20, vas a tener la posibilidad de desbloquear los cosméticos. Por cierto, nos dan un nuevo cosmético para la montura en este caso. Si matas al boss de mundo, el boss de mundo a partir de después de que pasen 24 horas de la beta, va a aparecer cada 3 horas. Así que vamos a tener literalmente 24 horas, 24 horas dividido en 3. Vamos a tener unos 7, 8 oportunidades para matar al World Boss y por lo tanto conseguir el nuevo trofeo. Van a estar disponibles todas las clases, las 5 clases de Diablo 4. Por cierto, había cierta expectativa de que se anunciara una sexta clase. Era... ¡Wow! Publicidad. Páusate. Vamos a continuar para pasar esto. ¿Qué es esto? Se me ha cambiado. No me gusta esto. Pero básicamente alguien más aquí... Esto es Diablo Inmortal, por cierto. Porque qué raro. Alguien que estaba viendo esto también parece. El caso... Vamos a volver aquí. Pero ¿por qué me redirecciona a esta persona? ¿Quién es esta persona? Están hosteando a alguien. Qué raro. No están hosteando. ¿Por qué me sale eso? ¡Mierda! A ver. Esto no está en reproducción automática. ¿Qué mierda está pasando aquí? El caso, no sé quién es él y no sé por qué me está redirigiendo esta persona cuando presiono el link de este señor. A ver, Diablo. En directo. Vale, aquí tenemos el live stream. Vamos a ver si encontramos alguna imagen interesante. Por ejemplo, aquí. Estos son aquí están las recompensas y algunos detalles de la beta del 12-14 de mayo. Nos van a dar un total de 4 cosméticos. Son 2 títulos y el cosmético del lobo. Y básicamente el cosmético extra para la montura, que lo muestran aquí. Aquí tenemos el cosmético extra para la montura. Vamos a retroceder un momento. Aquí está. Es este cuerno extraño que está aquí al costado. Y en general no nos dijeron demasiado. Nos mostraron algunos legendarios, un par de objetos únicos. Por ejemplo, estos son los objetos únicos. Si no mal recuerdo, objetos únicos solamente puedes equipar uno y son bastante potentes. No los he leído, vamos a leerlos. Aquí dice, gana un 20% de reducción de daño. Ok, en adición gana 4 rangos para todas las habilidades. ¡Ojo! Eso es muy potente. ¿Cómo funciona esto? ¡Ojo! El casco del arlequín. 4 de rango para cada habilidad. Ojo, eso puede estar muy gracioso. ¿Qué más tenemos aquí? Otro único. Si una habilidad core golpea 5 a 5 o más enemigos, 32% del recurso que has gastado en él se regenera. Ojo, también está muy bien para habilidades de área. Ojo, esto podría estar muy interesante para ciertas habilidades. A ver, ¿qué más? Los efectos de curar o los efectos de curarte. ¿What? Vale, los efectos que te curan por sobre el 100% te garantizan una barrera hasta un 44-80% de tu vida máxima durante 8 segundos. Ojo, esto... A ver, es defensivo, pero da mucha barrera. Y hay bonificaciones por barrera. Hay ciertas habilidades que si tienes una barrera activa, ganas bonificaciones bastante tochas. Así que ojo, esto también está muy interesante. Vamos a ver algunos de los legendarios. Los legendarios, la verdad es que algunos ya los conocemos. A ver, aquí dice... los golpes críticos con habilidades core incrementan la velocidad de ataque en un 25%. Ok, ese es bastante normal. Cuando tú evades con una habilidad que, si no mal recuerdo, es del pícaro, dejas básicamente una explosión, una un grupo de granadas que explotan y stunean, hacen 150 de daño y stunean a los enemigos por medio segundo, ¿vale? Estos son legendarios. Creo que muchos de estos estaban en la beta y se podían ver en la beta. Los únicos son la gran novedad, básicamente. Y claro, muchos de estos parecen que cambian mucho el cómo vas a jugar tu build. No son los más interesantes, hay que decirlo. Esperaba más de los objetos únicos, pero hay algunas de estas cositas que están muy interesantes. El caso, gran parte de los detalles que se han dicho en este directo se han dicho en básicamente este artículo que está el link en el chat. Que básicamente esto. Aquí tenemos algunos cambios que se han hecho con el feedback de la beta. La beta que se realizó de Diablo 4. Y casi todo esto fue dicho durante este streaming, que es precisamente este streaming, el 20 de abril. Por lo tanto, no hay muchas cositas interesantes más allá de que vamos a tener una nueva beta, 12, 13, 14 de mayo. También a principios de mayo deberían darnos una nueva actualización sobre cómo van a funcionar las temporadas. Tenemos aquí unos cuantos objetos únicos para irlos mirando. Vamos a tener un nuevo cosmético en caso de, por ejemplo, llegar a matar el World Boss durante este test. Que por aquí está la montura. Aquí está el cosmético de la montura, que es este cuerno de aquí al lado de la montura. También lo vi por aquí rápido. Nos explicaron, por ejemplo, algunos cambios de los dungeons. Por ejemplo, aquí tenemos un dungeon. No es buen ejemplo. Ese es buen ejemplo. Vamos a retroceder a ver si... Vale, por ejemplo, este era el funcionamiento antiguo de los dungeons. Partías desde un lado y si querías cumplir los objetivos del dungeon tenías que desviarte mucho y luego de desviarte tenías que devolverte mucho. Por lo tanto, había mucho de lo que se llama backtracking, que es básicamente esto de devolverte por un camino en el cual ya habías estado. Entonces no era demasiado divertido. Y esto, claro, se cambió. Este es uno de los cambios que se detallan, por ejemplo, en el artículo que les mostré recién, que los puntos objetivos están mucho más cerca de la ruta principal, por así decirlo, que deberías caminar por el dungeon. Y claro, esto lo hace no solo mucho más divertido, sino que mucho más, digamos, comestible, por así decirlo. Ahora, ¿qué va a pasar con todos estos espacios extra? ¿Van a valer la pena explorarlos? La verdad es que sí, aumentaron mucho la probabilidad de que en estos espacios extra aparezcan eventos random que te van a dar bonificaciones que podrían ayudarte mucho, por ejemplo, a completar el dungeon más rápido o a darte recompensas. Por lo tanto, tenemos incentivos para limpiar todo el dungeon, y si no queremos limpiar todo el dungeon lo podemos hacer bastante rápido simplemente siguiendo lo que vendría a ser el camino principal del dungeon. Así que hay cambios bastante interesantes que los vamos a poder ver el 12, 13 y 14 de mayo. Sumamente importante, nueva beta completamente abierta para probar el juego. Destacar, por último, vamos a ir terminando, que esa beta del juego ya es versión final del juego y ya vas a poder probar realmente cómo van a ser al menos los primeros 20 niveles del juego. Por lo tanto, vamos a dejar hasta aquí el directo. Ha sido bastante interesante, nos han dicho algunas cositas bastante interesantes, pero casi todo, casi todo está sacado de este artículo que, como digo, está en el chat. Voy a ver si lo dejo también en la descripción o en el comentario fijado de este directo, entre comillas. Por lo tanto, nada más, gente, hasta aquí el directo. Un gusto para todos los que han estado aquí. Y nada más. Saludos y buena suerte. Ahora, botón de detener. Ahora sí. Chao.